Welcome to the deep dive.
Great to be digging into these texts today.
Yeah, today we're plunging into some really ancient and quite profound material. It's excerpts from the Dhammapada Ethikatha.
And you should think of this as this really rich collection full of stories, commentaries. They really bring the Buddha's teachings to life.
They really do. And these aren't, just dry academic explanations.
Not at all. They use these vivid narratives, and often they feature interactions between the Buddha and, well, this figure called Māra.
Ah, Māra. He's such a fascinating character in these texts, isn't he?
Definitely.
Sometimes called the evil one. But really, he seems to represent more like the forces of temptation, obstacles, maybe the unwholesome parts we all kind of wrestle with.
Exactly, both externally and, inside our own minds. He's the obstruction, the tempter figure, always trying to pull them away from liberation.
Right. So our mission in this deep dive is to really unpack a few specific stories about these encounters with Māra.
See how the Buddha handles them.
Yeah, see how he navigates them and try to pull out the really vital insights for you listening. How can we understand and maybe deal with our own internal and external obstacles, our own Māras?
And find maybe a deeper sense of freedom, of real happiness. Consider this like a shortcut to grasping the core of these powerful stories.
And their relevance, which is surprisingly contemporary, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Right here, right now.
Okay, so let's dive into the first encounter. The setting is the famous Jetavana Monastery.
Right, and Māra shows up. But interestingly, he's not, horns and pitchfork. Not yet, anyway.
Huh, right. How does he appear?
The source says he appears disguised. Just looks like an ordinary man blending in.
Like he could be just any other visitor asking a question.
Pretty much. And he does ask a question. He asks the Buddha about the shore, pāra in the Pali.
The shore? What's that about?
Well, it seems like a probing question. He's maybe trying to figure out the extent of the Buddha's attainment,
Yeah.
the boundaries of his freedom. Can he find a limit, a weak point?
But the Buddha's on to him immediately.
Instantly. The text is clear. The Buddha recognized this is Māra. That immediate penetrating awareness, he sees right through the disguise.
Sees the real challenge being presented.
Yeah.
So how does he answer this seemingly innocent question about finding the shore?
Well, he doesn't really play Māra's game. He doesn't engage on those terms. He redirects straight away.
Okay.
He says that the shore Māra is interested in, well, that's something attained only by those who are free from passion. And then he delivers this core teaching, a verse that defines a true Brahmana, a worthy one, a perfected being.
And that verse is really striking. What was it again?
For whom the shore, the non-shore, both shore and non-shore do not exist.
Okay, that needs unpacking. The shore, the non-shore, both. What do those mean here?
Thankfully, the source breaks it down. The shore, para, refers to our 6 internal sense bases.
Meaning eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind. Our perceptual tools.
Exactly. You could say we are the shore, our internal setup.
Okay, and the non-shore?
The non-shore, para, is the other side of that, the 6 external sense bases. So visible forms, sounds, smells, tastes, physical sensations, and mental objects.
The things out there that we perceive.
Right. So both shore and non-shore, para, is talking about the whole interaction, the internal senses meeting the external objects, our entire sensory experience.
Got it. Seeing, hearing, thinking, feeling, the whole lot.
The whole shebang. Now, when the Buddha says, for this perfected person, these do not exist, navyati.
It doesn't mean they go blind or deaf.
No, not at all. It means there's no longer any grasping, no clinging to these experiences or objects as I or mine. The fundamental relationship to experience has changed.
So it's not about stopping the senses. It's about stopping the clinging to the input. The problem isn't seeing, it's the attachment to what's seen.
Precisely. That's the crucial distinction. And the text adds another layer. This person is free from trembling or anxiety.
Free from anxiety.
And what's fascinating is how the source connects this. It says this freedom comes directly from being detached, visiyuddha, from all defilements, all the inner pollutants like greed, hatred, delusion.
So the text is saying the anxiety we feel isn't just like a normal reaction to stuff happening.
It's suggesting it's fundamentally rooted in our inner defilements, and especially in our clinging, our grasping onto sensory experience as me or mine.
Wow. Okay, so this is where it gets really practical for you listening around. This ancient text is suggesting that if you can loosen your grip on the sights, sounds, thoughts, feelings that run through your life, if you stop identifying with them so tightly.
That directly leads to less anxiety. less inner trembling.
What might that actually look like in your own day-to-day? Could less clinging genuinely mean less? Well, less trembling. It's a powerful idea.
Definitely. Now, Māra doesn't just ask tricky questions, he gets more cunning.
Right. Let's move to the second encounter. Where does this one happen?
This time the Buddha is in a forest hut, somewhere near the Himalayas.
Okay. And the setup.
Well, the Buddha is observing the world, and he sees that kings are often ruling unjustly, causing a lot of suffering, oppression, grief.
And this sparks something in him.
Yes, a wave of compassion. The source says he reflects internally, wondering, is it actually possible to rule a kingdom righteously, according to the Dharma, without killing, without causing grief?
That sounds like a completely pure thought.
Yeah.
Just motivated by compassion for people suffering.
You'd absolutely think so. But Māra, he's always watching, always looking for an opening.
Uh-oh.
The source says he perceives this very thought, this compassionate reflection on kingship, and he sees it as a place of negligence. Pamadatha.
Negligence. How can a thought about righteous rule be negligent? That seems completely counterintuitive.
It does, doesn't it? But from Māra's perspective, or perhaps from the perspective of ultimate liberation, any thought focused on worldly power, on being a king, even with the best intentions,
Is still about the world.
Exactly. It could potentially distract or pull someone away from the ultimate goal, which is transcending the world altogether. So Māra sees this contemplation of kingship as a potential foothold, an entry point for unwholesome influence.
Wow. So he doesn't tempt the Buddha with something obviously bad like greed or hate.
No, he's much cleverer here.
Yeah.
He twists the Buddha's own compassionate thought into a worldly temptation.
How does he do that?
He appears before the Buddha and actually encourages him. He says, "Rule, blessed one, rule righteously. You should do it."
Whoa. He's agreeing with the compassionate impulse, but pushing it toward worldly action.
Precisely. And then he adds the sweetener. He says, "Look, don't worry about resources. I'll turn the entire Himalayan mountain range into solid gold for you. You just use your power, take up kingship, and I'll provide the wealth."
An entire mountain of gold. That's quite the offer. He's trying to co-opt the Buddha's compassion for worldly gain.
It's an incredibly subtle trap, offering unlimited resources for a seemingly good cause.
But the Buddha sees right through it.
Instantly. He rejects it flat out. Tells Māra basically, "Your advice and my way are completely different things. We can't consult on the Dharma, you and I."
And then he doesn't just leave it at no. He uses this moment, again, as a teaching opportunity.
Yes. He pivots to teach what truly brings happiness, directly contrasting it with Māra's offer of gold and power.
How does he start?
He first addresses the gold directly. He says something like, "Even a whole mountain of pure gold isn't enough to satisfy even one person."
Highlighting the endless nature of craving.
Exactly. The inherent unsatisfying nature of trying to fill that inner void with external things. Material gain just feeds the grasping mind. It never truly satisfies it.
A simple truth, but so powerful. Worldly wealth just can't do the job.
And he goes on, questioning how anyone who has truly seen the origin of suffering, seen that it's rooted in desire, in wanting, in clinging, how could they possibly then incline towards sensual pleasures, towards the very things that fuel that suffering?
End point.
He emphasizes that knowing this attachment that permeates the world, the only rational response is to train for its removal, its uprooting.
That's the core message again, isn't it? Māra offers more attachment, more entanglement. The Buddha teaches detachment, freedom.
Yes. And then he lays out this beautiful list of what the source says actually brings true, lasting happiness. It's a powerful counterproposal to Māra's gold.
What's on the list?
Well, things like having friends when you need them, that simple happiness of connection and support.
Simple, yeah, but deeply important.
Absolutely. And then contentment, too. This is key. The source emphasizes being satisfied with whatever you have, whether it's little or much. Discontent, it says, just leads people lay or monastic down unhappy, unwholesome paths.
Contentment versus craving a mountain of gold. The contrast couldn't be clearer.
Exactly. The list continues. Things like merit, doing good deeds, punya. This brings happiness, especially the text notes, at the end of life, looking back with no regrets.
A different kind of wealth.
A much more lasting kind. And then, of course, the ultimate happiness, the complete abandonment of all suffering. Arahattship, the final goal.
The fruit of the entire path.
Yes, but it also includes very grounded ethical behaviors like respect and service toward your mother, Matiyata, and your father, Patiyata.
Honoring parents.
Right. And the source actually details both the practical worldly benefits like inheriting wealth, getting a good reputation, receiving praise, and the significant spiritual consequences. Good treatment leads towards heaven, neglect towards hell. So ethics have real weight.
Both here and hereafter, according to the text.
Absolutely. It also lists respect towards monastics, samanyata, and respect towards the truly worthy ones, the brahmanas, brahmanyata.
Who does that include?
Specifically, it mentions Buddhas, Pacceka Buddhas, those enlightened on their own, and liberated disciples. Showing respect means attending to their basic needs, the four requisites: robes, food, lodging, medicine. This practice itself is said to bring happiness in the world.
So supporting those who embody or walk the path is a source of happiness.
It seems so. And then there's virtue, sela itself, ethical conduct. The source uses this lovely analogy here.
Oh, yeah.
It says virtue is like an adornment, like jewelry. But unlike jewelry, which might only look good when you're young, virtue makes a person beautiful at all ages. Young, middle-aged, old. Virtue always beautifies. It brings praise, inner joy, and happiness that lasts until old age.
That's beautiful. Virtue is timeless beauty.
Isn't it? The list rounds off with a few more essentials. Established faith, saddhapatithita. Stable faith, whether it's worldly faith in karma or transcendent faith in the path, is a source of happiness.
Having something firm to stand on.
Yes. And the attainment of wisdom, panyapalava. Again, both worldly wisdom and the ultimate transcendent wisdom brings happiness. And finally, a simple but profound one. Not doing evil, papampana. Just avoiding harmful actions is in itself happy in this world.
What a powerful alternative vision of happiness compared to Māra's offer. It completely reframes it.
Totally. It shifts the focus from external acquisition to internal cultivation and ethical living.
So for you listening now, think about this list. How does this ancient understanding of happiness, friends, contentment, merit, respect, virtue, faith, wisdom, avoiding harm, how does it resonate with you? Does it challenge your own ideas about well-being?
And maybe which of these sources feels most relevant or perhaps most achievable for you to cultivate a little more in your life right now? Contentment, virtue, maybe just strengthening supportive friendships.
Okay, let's look at our third encounter. This one takes us back to Jetavana,
Right. And it involves Venerable Rāhula.
the Buddha's own son.
Yes. Who, by this point in the tradition, is considered an arahatta, a fully liberated being.
An arahatta. But the story finds him in a situation that seems, well, a bit vulnerable.
It does, in a way. The source explains that one evening, Rahula was woken up by some senior monks needing his space. And because he was relatively junior, even as an arhat, he didn't have priority for lodging. So, having nowhere else private to sleep, he just lay down outside the door of the Buddha's own dwelling, his hut.
So an enlightened being, basically sleeping rough just outside his father's door.
Pretty much. It highlights the simplicity and the rules of monastic life, even for someone highly attained.
And Māra sees this.
Oh, yes. Māra, watching from his own realm, sees Rahula sleeping there. And the text says Māra thinks of Rahula as the Buddha's little finger, sort of exposed, maybe vulnerable.
So Māra's thinking is, if I can mess with the son, I can get to the father.
Exactly. He thinks he can trouble the Buddha indirectly by troubling Rahula, maybe assuming there's still some lingering paternal attachment or concern he can exploit.
So how does he try to trouble an arhat? Someone supposedly beyond suffering.
Well, this time it's not temptation with gold or power, it's fear. Pure intimidation.
Seer now.
The source says Māra transforms himself into a gigantic, terrifying elephant. Huge. And he tries to frighten Rahula by wrapping his enormous trunk around Rahula's head and letting out this deafening trumpet sound right near him.
Wow. Imagine that. This massive illusion, the sheer sensory assault aimed right at him, trying to provoke terror.
A direct attack on the senses and the mind's response to perceived danger.
But again, the Buddha is aware, even inside the hut.
Immediately. He knows it's Māra, knows what he's up to, and he calls out directly to him.
What does he say?
He says essentially, Māra, you cannot frighten my son, not even if you brought hundreds of thousands like this elephant.
A powerful rebuke. And the reason Rahula can't be frightened lies in his attainment.
Precisely. The Buddha then describes Rahula's qualities, the qualities of an arhat, which basically shows why Māra's scare tactics are completely useless against him.
What are those qualities?
He says Rahula has completed the goal, or reached the goal, nitagato, which in this teaching context means he's attained arhatship, he's finished the job, the work is done.
He's done. No more to do on the path.
Right. And therefore he is fearless, asantasi. But Crucially, the text implies this isn't just ordinary courage. It's fearlessness born from the absence of inner fears.
Winning.
Meaning the fears rooted in passion, aversion, delusion, craving. Those inner causes of fear are gone. So external threats have no inner hook to catch on to.
That's a profound kind of fearlessness.
It is. He's also free from craving, a title, and faultless, or without blemish, anago. No inner imperfections for Māra's negativity to latch onto.
Nothing to grab hold of.
Exactly. He has cut the darts of existence, akindi pavasalani. These darts are the things like craving and ignorance that keep being stuck, propelling them through the cycles of birth and death. He's cut those ties.
And because of that.
This is his final body, antimoya samusayo.
Hmm.
He won't be reborn into suffering again. That cycle is broken for him.
The ultimate freedom.
It is. He's also described as free from grasping, anaddano, not clinging to the physical body, the mental states, anything. And the description goes beyond just freedom from defilements. It includes wisdom qualities.
Like what?
He's skilled in language and terms, neurotipatakovido, adept in understanding the teachings, the doctrine, how to express it. This is linked to deep analytical knowledge, the paisambitas.
So not just liberated, but also deeply wise and articulate.
Yes. And he understands the arrangement and sequence of letters. Akarana sanipatachanya pubapranika. The commentary explains this means understanding the structure of language, the beginning, middle, and end of words, their meanings. A real mastery.
A profound understanding of meaning and communication itself.
Exactly. So the Buddha calls him greatly wise, Mahapanyo, because he's reached the final goal and possesses this comprehensive wisdom covering the Dharma, its meaning, its language, analytical insight, as well as virtue.
Wow.
And finally, he's called a great man, Mahapuriso. The Buddha elsewhere states that a liberated mind, mutachita, makes one a great man. So Rahula is a great man because his mind is free.
That paints such a complete, powerful picture of what liberation entails in this tradition. It's not just inner peace, is it?
Not at all. It's this combination of profound peace, unshakable fearlessness, grounded in purity, deep wisdom, and complete freedom from the cycles of suffering and the grasping that drives them.
So, thinking about this for you listening, what does this incredible description of an arahatta, like Rahula, reveal about the ultimate potential, the highest goal within this path?
And maybe more practically, how might cultivating even some of these qualities, like that inner fearlessness that comes from working on your inner defilements or becoming freer from craving, how might that offer real protection against the Māras, the challenges and fears you face in your own life?
So looking back at these three encounters we've unpacked from the Dhammavattha, there's a really clear pattern emerging.
There really is, isn't there? In each story, you have Māra representing all those forces of temptation, resistance, fear, trying to derail the Buddha or his disciples.
Sometimes subtly, like with the question about the shore, or twisting the compassionate thought.
And sometimes blatantly, like the offer of gold or the terrifying elephant illusion.
Right. And every single time, the Buddha doesn't just, swat Māra away. He uses the encounter itself as a teaching moment, a chance to clarify the path.
Exactly. He consistently points away from what Māra is offering, whether it's limits, worldly power, wealth, or trying to provoke fear, and points towards the real solution.
Which is always internal cultivation.
Always. Freedom from grasping, contentment, virtue, developing wisdom, detachment. These are presented as the path to genuine, lasting happiness, the kind that's unshakable. Invulnerable, really.
The contrast is just so stark. Māra offers external fixes or uses external threats. The Buddha offers internal transformation.
And the ideal figure, the one who has truly overcome Māra, whether called a Brahmana in the first story or an arahatta like Rahula in the third, is shown as being utterly complete, fearless, free from the very things Māra deals in. Attachment, craving, fear of loss, fear of existence itself.
It makes these ancient stories feel incredibly relevant. They give us this framework for understanding our own struggles, don't they?
Absolutely. We all face our own Māras constantly. The temptations that distract us, the cravings that hook us, the fears that hold us back, the mental chatter that pulls us away from maybe a deeper sense of well-being.
These stories show that the real battle isn't necessarily out there against external forces, but it's deeply internal.
And the path to navigating those challenges, to finding freedom from them, lies in cultivating these inner qualities that make us resilient, clear-sighted, and ultimately unshakable.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, here's maybe something for you to take away and reflect on. Think about the Māras you've bumped up against recently in your own life.
Maybe a strong temptation that pulled you off course, a moment where fear really gripped you, or just that nagging feeling of discontent or grasping for something more.
Now, consider those qualities the Buddha highlighted in response to Mara: detachment from outcomes, contentment with what is, ethical integrity, wisdom, or clarity, that deep inner fearlessness born from purity.
Which one of those qualities feels like it might offer you the most leverage right now with your own particular challenges?
And maybe ask yourself, what's one small, concrete step you could take, perhaps even today, to consciously cultivate just one of those qualities a little more? It could be a step towards navigating your own maras with greater freedom and finding that deeper happiness the Buddha pointed towards.